It's episode 1093. It's a Relevant Podcast here in Orlando. I'm your host, Cameron Strang, and joining me from Loverland, Virginia, it's Jesse Carey.
Hello, hello.
From Nashville, Tennessee, our managing editor, downtown Emily Brown.
Hey, y'all.
And once again, sitting in for Derek and Jamie, our friend, the sixth man of the year, from Social Club Misfits, it's Marty.
What's going on, everybody? Happy to be here. Thank you.
Dude, we're glad you're with us. Well, okay, we're in full-on mid-August. Summer's ending. Fall's ramping up. Not temperature-wise, but, things happening. Jesse, I got to tell you, this week I was watching Hard Knocks, which I do. I'm not an NFL guy.
Yeah.
I watch no games, but I always watch Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
And the team they're following is your team. I was thinking about you last night.
Long-time Jets
how are you feeling? I got to know. What are your thoughts about this Hard Knocks where they're following your team, the Jets?
Well, listen, if there's a couple quick things. One, if Jets are going to be on Hard Knocks, it's going to be a fun Jets team. The last time it was like the Rex Ryan team, which was an all-timer in the history of Hard Knocks.
Was that the one where one of the players started listing all of his children's names and it was like 19 children?
Braylon
He couldn't remember them all.
That was Braylon Edwards. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, and Rex Ryan was a colorful personality, and they had Mark Sanchez. But anyway, this year, I watched the first episode Tuesday night. Cameron was texting me the next day to get my thoughts on it. The notable thing about the New York Jets this year is they have brought in Aaron Rodgers. Now, the one thing that is interesting about the Jets is they're one of the youngest teams in the NFL. Most of the guys on that roster are in their early to mid 20s. Aaron Rodgers turns 40 this year. That means when when most of the players were in their formative years, from ages like 7 to 12 years old, or watching the NFL, Aaron Rodgers was winning Super Bowl, was like one of the top tier. So these teammates of Aaron Rodgers were literal children watching Aaron Rodgers throughout their entire childhood. There was one moment where a player came up to him and literally said, "Hey, man, I've been watching you play football since I've been 7 years old." And now they're teammates.
Whoa.
And I'll say this, Aaron Rodgers, I know, is a lot of people have strong opinions about him in NFL circles. It made you really like him, but also just as old man Rodgers, he was great. He was so fun to watch. Not only was he still balling out there, and the highlights, obviously they kind of can selectively edit. He seemed like an interesting, genuine dude. I remember a couple years ago, he was on Instagram and just went to go watch the Super Bowl alone with Rob Bell. He's just one of those guys, or he'll go on an ayahuasca retreat. He's one of those dudes that just does random stuff, but you kind of get an appreciation for you know what? I don't know what I think about him, but I will say this. It is wildly entertaining watching him play football and watching him interact with people that are literally half his age.
Okay, I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
I had no idea that he watched the Super Bowl with Rob Bell.
Yep.
But why did you say he watched the Super Bowl alone with Rob Bell?
I think it was just him and Rob Bell. I remember seeing stories.
But he's not alone. He's with Rob Bell.
Yeah, but I don't think he was at a Super Bowl party that Rob Bell was at. I think for some reason he was just hey, Rob Bell, want to watch the Super Bowl together? He is just he's one of the most random dudes ever. And you get that impression watching the show that he just seems if you ended up just at the same thing as Aaron Rodgers one night and it's hey man, you want to road trip all night to Niagara Falls and just see what happens, you would get the impression that he would probably do something like that, and you'd be I'm in for the ride, man, and you would never forget. It's when people have those Bill Murray stories where Bill Murray will just walk up to a crowd on the streets of New York and just take them out for a wild night. You get the impression that is every day for Aaron Rodgers, and I'm here for Hard Knocks. I'm here for the whole Jets season, but Hard Knocks is going to be wildly entertaining. Cameron, as a non-Jets fan, what was your impression?
I mean, I thought the generational divide thing was hilarious because I did not know this because I didn't watch the NFL last year, but the Jets had the top offensive rookie
Garrett
wide
Wilson.
receiver and the top, defensive player
Sauce
rookie
Gardner.
as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's this one shot where they are about to play the Hall of Fame game, a preseason exhibition game, but like all these players were getting, put into the Hall of Fame before the game. And so there's this shot, national anthem, they're standing up waiting, and Aaron Rodgers and the first guy you said, the offensive rookie,
Garrett
were standing
Wilson,
side by side, and they're just talking to each other. And Aaron was trying to tell him, hey, man, appreciate this moment. I mean, like one day that could be you going to the Hall of Fame. And the kid goes, yeah, man, I have legit aspirations to play in the NFL for 40 years. And Aaron Rodgers looks at him, like just like the generational divide between 21 years old and 40 years old was never more evident than that one scene. Yeah. But it's going to be fun to watch these guys. Yeah, so congratulations, buddy.
Oh, it's Jets fans don't get very much to be excited about. Getting Hard Knocks, whether the season ends up with a train wreck, it's 50-50. Either the Jets are going to be awesome and like storm through the playoffs, or it is going to be an utter train wreck by week 3. I don't care. I'm here for it. It's entertaining, and that's why we watch this thing.
Marty, you a Dolphins guy?
I be honest with you, my whole entire family loves the Jets. My uncle, huge Jets fans. Everyone's from New York. You know how it goes. Man. Everyone's from New York. They support the Jets. I couldn't name you one player. I couldn't name you. I don't know if you guys were talking
Aaron
about
Rodgers.
There you go. I thought that was for some reason a chicken company, but I think that team is great, and I hope that they take it. And best of luck to Mr. Rodgers and his whole crew.
Emily, real quick. I know you last episode. No, for people who listen, we talked extensively how meaningful, like old school Disney prime
Selena Gomez
was to you. That's probably the equivalent. That's probably the equivalent.
To talk about Taylor Swift.
That sentimentality is probably the equivalent of what I have for a lot of professional sports. Does the NFL mean anything, or would you watch Hard Knocks just for sort of the reality show aspect of it?
Let me just preface this with saying I'm sorry to my father because this is going to break his heart, but I could not be paid to watch it. It just has no interest in me whatsoever. As you were talking about Aaron Rodgers, all I could think about was his most recent relationship with Shailene Woodley, who was the star of like the Divergent series. Like,
I saw her at the airport. That's the only famous person I've seen.
Oh yeah, you told me that. Yeah, like that's my extent of football knowledge is who they're dating. So if she's on the show, I'll watch her clips.
She might show up. I mean, I'll be honest.
Well, I think they broke up. So.
Rodgers seems like kind of a wild card. He could roll into camp with anything.
Right?
Yeah.
Like he's like 6 foot, and she's like 5 foot.
He's a professional NFL player.
Yeah,
of
he's
course
huge. He's the size of a freaking car died of a tree. Like, I just feel like it's an odd couple. Like, they're so different.
But I will say this: when Liev Schreiber, the actor, showed up to training camp because he does the voiceover, the very dramatic voiceover for Hard Knocks.
I had no idea that was him. That was crazy.
And Aaron Rodgers was so fascinated, and all he wanted to do was to talk to him the entire time and try to convince other players how big of a deal it was that kind of a B, C-list actor was there on the sidelines. But Aaron Rodgers was so fascinated just by his ability to do the NFL voiceover that he basically ignored training camp for an entire day just to make random conversation. Even though when Liev Schreiber didn't seem all that interested at some point, Aaron Rodgers would not stop talking to him. And I was like, you know what? I'm here for this. I'm here for every episode of Hard Knocks this year.
Okay, I did just want to look this up because I thought I was right and I wanted to confirm.
Dad and daughter.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an age.
You're both Googling.
Yeah,
Marty, are you a 5? Are you an Enneagram 5? Are you a researcher?
I'm a 3. I'm a 3-5.
Through the 4 wing.
I'm a 3-5, actually.
You can't be a 3-5. You'd be a 3-4.
3-4,
yeah.
whatever,
the artistic
whatever
side.
Look at this picture. Look at this picture I just sent you guys in the chat. Doesn't that look like dad and daughter?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting couple. I have a lot of thoughts about them. But I want to confirm this. He went to 2 different Taylor Swift shows this year. So he's a Swiftie. I will give him that. And so that means a lot to me.
This is wild.
If you had to pick, right, Emily, there's 2 people going for government. One is a Swiftie. One is an anti-Swiftie. And one of them... Anti-Swiftie. And then you have a Swiftie. Now, the person who's Swiftie supports abortion. The person who's anti-Swiftie doesn't. Who are you voting for?
Emily, do not answer this question. Thank you very much for offering it, Marty. Okay, moving right along.
One supports abortion. Who do you choose?
I just shared another picture that appears to be Rob Bell and Aaron Rodgers going surfing together.
Let me see this one.
I'm just telling you, he's one of the most interesting dudes out there.
Who, Rob Bell?
Well, and Aaron Rodgers.
Rob Bell and Aaron Rodgers. Okay, let's compare the pictures of Aaron Rodgers.
Do we like Rob Bell, by the way, on the show? Because if I say this next comment and start going that direction, he always looks like he's caught off guard. He just always looks like sloppy. His hair is always like he's always sweating, and his clothes are sticking to him. I'm always like, what's going on with this guy? Who is Rob Bell, by the way? Who is that? Is he an old player?
He was the pastor of a church in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Is he a player?
While he was at while he was at Mars Hill Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan, he did a teaching series of Bible, messages called Pneuma in the 2000s. This is prior to YouTube, so you would buy the DVDs of Pneuma, and they were like
saved. I didn't know what was going on back then.
They were interesting, like well shot cinematography, and like it was just like it was good. And then he abruptly left Grand Rapids and Mars Hill and moved to LA, and he was going to do a show and other things. He had other ideas. The show never happened, and he's just been in LA doing like seminars and writing books. I don't know what he's doing now. So there you go. Rob Bell. He used to be a pastor. He kind of got shunned out of the church because of a book he wrote called Love Wins, where he questioned the theology of heaven and hell. And that, is a little bit more universalist in his theology. And that basically, excommunicated him from Christian bookstores and stuff in the 2000s. So, yeah.
I do want to talk about, in these two photos you sent, one of Aaron Rodgers with Shailene Woodley, his girlfriend, and the other with Rob Bell.
Former.
His smile is significantly bigger than the one with Rob Bell, and that is very funny to me.
Well, there's another one with hanging out with Pete Holmes, another kind of who's been in Relevant multiple times, where he also seems to be smiling, bigger than it is with his ex-girlfriend. Yeah.
Also, I've been with Pete Holmes. I interviewed Pete Holmes in his home, and Pete Holmes is tall. But this picture of Pete Holmes and Aaron Rodgers makes Aaron Rodgers look like he's like 5'8".
Right?
Like, this is crazy.
What's up with that hairstyle that like pastors had in the 2000s, like Judah Smith, Rob Bell, where they'd almost like let it like hang off the side of their face with their hair? You ever see that? Like, was that a style back then? I don't know. Is that like a... Like, do you ever notice that? Like, the hairstyles of Christians are really outlandish. And they only exist in our world. In mainstream, they're like, who is this guy, right? Like, why would he have... Like, I'm just gonna spam you guys a bunch of pastor photos with this hairstyle.
No, why are you doing this?
It's so aggressively hairstylish. I don't know how to say this, but what's up with this style? Like, why is this... Is it like a new age thing?
Dude, the mid 2010s were a rough era for Christian pastors. Yeah. Okay, all right. We have a great show in store for you today. Coming up later, we talk to one of our favorite authors, Max Lucado. He has a new book coming out next month called God Never Gives Up on You. September 12th it comes out. Conversation you're going to hear today is your first peek at that content. So you don't want to miss that. Also, we have a little game at the end of the show that you don't want to miss. But stay tuned. Right now, up next, it's Slices.
Don't dance with the devil in D. Hold hands with the powers that be. No chance that the feeling ain't free. One mind, one body, one speed. Alright, held in your light. It's brighter with you. You're my radiant reason.
You're listening to King's Kaleidoscope. The song is Radiant Reason. Well, today's show is brought to you in part by HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Fall is right around the corner, and HelloFresh is here to help you plan for the busy season ahead with tasty dishes delivered to your door. Simply choose your recipes and pick your delivery date, and then lay back and enjoy the last days of summer knowing dinner is covered. Longtime Relevant podcast listeners know I've been a HelloFresh customer for years. I love it. It makes me feel like I can actually cook. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes. It really does make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. So when life gets busy, don't call for delivery. Get HelloFresh. It's 25% cheaper than takeout and less expensive than grocery shopping too. Just choose your recipes and receive fresh, pre-portioned ingredients so you can get cooking quick. And right now, relevant podcast listeners can get 50% off plus free shipping. All you have to do is go to HelloFresh.com/50relevant and use code 50relevant at checkout. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/50relevant and use code 50relevant for 50% off plus free shipping. Okay, it's time for
Slices.
What do you have, Jesse?
All right, I have an old-fashioned twofer, and I'm going to keep both quick because I have two. I've seen this story floating around, and I had to like look at. I actually did a deep dive on this morning about a Texas woman named Peggy Jones. Which, by the way, if you find a more Texas name than Peggy Jones, let me know. I mean,
no nonsense. Yeah. She's not taking any gruff.
Yeah, literally Peggy.
She's Texan. So was Peggy Hill from King of the Hill. Like it is a straight down the middle Texas name.
She's a straight shooter right there. That
salt
Peggy,
of the earth.
Peggy
That's
Jones.
why I have no idea or no reason to doubt her story. Because when I read the headline, I was like, oh, this is hilarious. I got to see this. That a woman was gardening and a snake fell out of the sky onto her and began attacking her. And then a hawk swooped down on her and started attacking the snake, causing her to be under attack by two animals. And I thought, this is hilarious. It's got to be a video. This is great. This is hilarious. This is perfect right upside. Then I read the story and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is it went from funny to straight up nightmare zone. And I don't want to. Peggy's fine. Well, she's got to make a full recovery. She's not fine.
Yeah, big old wrap around her arm. Yeah.
Well, I saw a photo floating around her pre-wrap, and it looked horrific. Here's what happened: a hawk is flying over, and the hawk had captured a snake in its talons that it was going to eat, because that's what hawks do. Mm-hmm. I guess it lost its grip, or it was I'm guessing it was a particularly feisty snake that was probably biting at the hawk. The hawk let it go. It fell directly onto this woman's arm and wrapped itself around her arm and started squeezing.
Question: when I walk in a field, my arms are by my side.
She's gardening.
She's gardening? Her arms are out, stretched out.
Tending the garden. I got it. Tending the garden.
Oh my God.
Okay. Snake falls on, and I guess it goes to like tree branch mode and wraps it up and gets really tight on it. And she's obviously, you're gardening, you're minding your own business, and a snake falls onto your arm and wraps itself around you. You're going to start freaking out. So she starts freaking out and trying to rip the snake off. Well, the snake starts biting her repeatedly on the arm. As she's trying to rip the snake off, a hawk swoops down from the sky, talons out, and starts attacking the snake. And she starts attacking the hawk, which starts attacking her. She is under attack of two animals before she's eventually able to fight them off.
She's just trying to pluck a tomato, from
she's
her
minding
garden,
her own business. And she starts praying like she was saying, "Oh, awful. Jesus, help me." She literally said, I thought I was going to die. And at first I thought, when I read the headline, I was like, oh, this is funny. You get attacked by a hawk and a snake at the same time. No. Her arm looked mangled.
It looks bad. I finally found the photo of it. I'll send it to you guys right now.
You don't even want to see it.
Yeah, it's in a newspaper. Marty, it's actually in a newspaper.
It's awful. It looks really like she got attacked by a hawk and a snake at the same time.
I'm putting in the chat right now. Look at her arm. It's the biggest HD photo I've ever seen. Meat. Yeah, dude, it looks bad. Here, I just posted it for you guys.
Some sites are blurring it.
Christianity Today article that I posted.
Oh my God!
I know. Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
That looks like the Passion of the Christ.
Yeah,
I don't want to see that.
Bad.
Anyway, Peggy, we're glad you're okay. I'm sorry this has become a novelty story, and there's no moral of this story. There's nothing you can do.
Is the snake okay?
This could happen.
I'm just kidding.
I want to know, how did she get them? She won the fight clearly. So
her husband jumped in to help her and eventually got the snake off, and the hawk got distracted. But I want to say, moral of the story is there is no moral of the story. The moral of the story is this could happen and will happen to everyone listening to this podcast at any moment of their life when they're wandering around outside.
Jesse,
it's not a matter
I just
of
want to thank you I want to thank you, Jesse, for bringing this story up because it forced Marty to stop posting photos of mid-2010s pastor hair, which is distracting me because he keeps filling our chat with these stupid swipey,
it just
swoopy
looks like 2008 was a person. If 2008 was a person, it just looks like that right there. Those people are 2008. It's like Superman when he got frozen, and there's the whole thing. It's just like
all I'm saying is
Luke
you never
Skywalker.
know. You never know what day you'll just be minding your own business and be savagely attacked by a snake and a hawk at the same time. But do know this: that day will come. Anyway, slice number 2. Slice number 2. The toy company Mattel is looking for someone to be their chief Uno officer, and they're going to get paid a sizable sum, over $200 an hour, $227 an hour, basically to play Uno. And they're the latest version of the game, which is called Uno Quattro, and kind of post about it on social media, kind of find different interesting things about the game. Now, I think this is a really cool opportunity for Uno players, but I want to caution you because when I used to live in Florida, that is the home of EA Sports, the video game franchise.
Right.
And I remember
Downtown
seeing
Orlando.
signs sometimes that they were hiring game testers for EA Sports.
That's
and
right.
I was at a party one time, and I was chit-chatting with people, making the rounds, and I ran into someone that said they were a game tester at EA Sports. I'm like, no way. That seems like the coolest job ever. I can't believe. He's like, no, it is the worst job you can possibly imagine. He's like, most of the times, I don't even get it out of the menu screens. Like, most of the times, I'm like going through the options menu. Like when you log into video games.
Yeah, wow, I never thought about that.
He's like, most of it is not even game. So you could be the chief Uno officer thinking that you're just hanging out with your buds all day playing Uno when you're really just sitting there reading the rule book and matching it up to game. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying I talked to an actual EA game tester and it said it was a terrible job. So just be caution out there, chief Uno officer.
Was
May
he
not
getting
be as
paid
cool as it sounds.
$200 an hour though? Because I think I could do that for $200 an hour.
The EA person, I didn't ask about the pay. It's a little gauche at a party.
Sure.
All right. What do you have, Emily?
There was an announcement last week from The Office star Leslie David Baker, who played Stanley Hudson, that he was giving up plans to launch a spinoff series. He announced this back in 2020, raised like over $100,000 for it, and has just been sitting on it ever since. And he said he wanted to do like a spinoff, call it Uncle Stanley or Uncle Stan, just about the life of Stanley Hudson, who
No one
was
wants that. Nobody wants that.
the grumpiest man.
I hated his character. He was the worst character, especially when he yelled at Michael. I hated him so much.
Whoa. I loved when he yelled at him.
Jesse, who's your favorite character?
Creed, no question. No question.
Yeah.
Would you watch a spinoff of Creed?
Yeah, I would.
All day.
I would.
All day.
I mean, all day. That's crazy.
I feel like he's interesting. He's interesting enough, and there's so little clarity on his backstory that it could be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Stanley's the least person I want to know. It would probably be Stanley and Angela, my two people I don't want anything to do with.
Well, the way that the show ends too is Stanley retires and moves to Florida to make those little weird bird statue things. Yeah. So it's like, am I going to watch him make those bird statues? Like, what was the point of this?
By the way, if you watch Peacock, the Superfan cuts, I think they have 6 seasons now. There's so much more Creed content.
Really?
That was cut out of the main show. Yeah, Jesse, you should watch it. Yeah.
Oh.
I think of you every time. I watch it every day.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I started watching the first season last week. I just was like, you know what? I want to laugh and like have some nostalgic fun. And man, that show is just aged well. It's such a good show.
Dude, you know what's weird about watching the Superfan versions is like there's entire storylines that they cut out.
Yeah,
of the main show.
It was a little. I can understand why they cut it because it really the first 2 seasons were like wholesome, and then like there's certain parts in that cut were like a little bit more edgy, and I feel like it was a little bit different for sure. It made you see the characters a lot different too.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. All right, what do you have, Marty?
Nothing. You have nothing.
All right.
I'm just kidding, Cameron. Listen, there's something happened. Yesterday, the Doves, Christian Grammys, a.k.a., were announced, and Social Club got Album of the Year nominee. That means I've been nominated 15 times and won 2 times so far. And, shout out to Lecrae for winning every year. Really cool to know that he's just going to win and take it. Appreciate, just being nominated, but, Lecrae
Is he
wins
nominated this year?
Yes, he wins. I have never beat Lecrae. The only time I've lost to someone who wasn't Lecrae was KB, and that was cool. But Cray sometimes doesn't even show up, and I'm like there by myself, and no one showed up in the whole category except for me and Fern. We're just like this, and the worst part is too, it's like winner is Lecrae, and then they're the camera, because we're the only ones there, me and Fern. It just goes on us, and we're like this. And we're like, just looking at the kid. They just have us. So
you should do a thumbs down, like.
No, do a big thumbs up. Just 2 thumbs up. Yeah. Yay! We all love Lecrae. Yeah.
I went this last time.
Hey, so we're pulling for you, man.
So I hope.
Congrats on the noms.
Hopefully a win. Nomination. New Hollywood. Limo Blaze got also Stephen Malcolm, RG. So there's some heavy hitters in the category. I'm excited to even be nominated. But I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was pretty cool.
The nomination list is cool. The problem I have is that the voters don't listen to y'all's music. That's the problem. Yeah, that's my impression.
Well, I mean, you have to understand too. Like the first voting round is like 30 people, and then you have to narrow it down to 30 people from 30 people. So you have a lot of people are winning by like 2 or 3 votes, and so for us, we have tried to. We love going to those shows. I mean, we never get invited anywhere else. So why, I'm not going to the Grammys, so I want to go to something. And I love the GMAs, and they're sweetest people in the world. They always take care of us, and it's fun to go because it's like you're hanging out with all your friends. You're hanging with Crowder's over here, and I'm pissing off Chris Tomlin over there. I got him mad the other day. I'm just getting everybody upset, telling jokes, having fun. It was great. I interrupted a conversation. Chris was talking to somebody, and I know it was important. And I walk up, I'm like, Chris, what's going on? And he doesn't know who I am. No one calls him Chris. They call him Mr. Tomlin. So I walk up, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he was like, him and this guy, this other famous guy, was like, they're talking, look at me, like, and I was like, hey, I bought your song when I got saved in 2012. He was like, cool. And I was like, all right. And I just walked away. That's pretty much how those things go.
Years and years ago, Mr. Tomlin was performing at a Passion conference. Not Passion, another conference we were at. Relevant was there. We had our team there. Mr. Tomlin met one of our employees, and they dated for 2 years. So that was fun. Wow. So there you go. Wow. Yeah, they're all married and happy now.
Aaron Rodgers and Shailene Woodley type situation. I get it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and Rob Bell was there.
He married him.
All right, stay tuned. Up next, Max Lucado joins us. Listening to Our Missing. The song is My Time as a Ghostly Someone Else. Well, our guest today is Max Lucado. He's a best-selling author who's here to talk about his upcoming book, God Never Gives Up on You, which releases September 12th. He shares with us how his new book was inspired by the story of Jacob and how his life has been transformed by God's grace, mercy, and relentless love. Here's our conversation with Max Lucado.
I really am so honored to speak with you today about your upcoming book, God Never Gives Up on You, because that's just such an important message that I think we always need to be reminded of, and that I think some people need to hear pretty constantly. And I'd love to know what inspired you to write this message.
Well, Emily, I've really enjoyed the story of Jacob for years. There's curiously not as much written about him as other well-known, especially Old Testament characters. And I think the reason is we don't quite know what to do with him. It's easy to put Moses on the Mount Rushmore of the Bible heroes story. It's easy to elevate Daniel or admire Joseph. Jacob is a little. He kind of, in my mind, he wears the poker visor hat. He's got a trick up his sleeve. He's working the system, He's always going to make things turn out the way they need to turn out for him to win. And so we don't quite know what to do with Jacob. We don't know quite how to understand his story. Maybe that's why not so much has been done with him. That could be to our impoverishment, however, because his story is our story, whereas we do make heroes out of Moses and Daniel and Joseph. We have a hard time aspiring. Who's going to prophesy like Daniel did or be elevated to prime minister like Joseph was? But we're all going to stumble and struggle like Jacob did. So I find great comfort in his story. He should have done better, it seems. He could have done better. It's sometimes hard to find redeeming aspects to certain chapters of his life, but he speaks to that person who really does wonder if God can use someone like me. And the answer is yes.
I think it is so important, like the book focuses in on grace and mercy specifically. And I think it'd be really important to define those terms as well, because I think they get used interchangeably a lot. So what is the difference between grace and mercy?
Well, mercy is when God does not give us the punishment that we deserve, when he interrupts us and delivers us from the consequences that we deserve. Grace is a broader picture, a bigger word that describes God's choice to bless us with his kindness. So maybe mercy is interruption of consequence, whereas grace is a blessing of providence. It's a bigger word. Grace is, we're saved by grace. In other words, we're saved by God's choice to have kindness or treat us with favor. Mercy is what happened to the prodigal son when he came back. He should have been punished by his father, but he wasn't. He did not have to endure the consequence of what he had done. In my mind, the words overlap quite a bit. They overlap. That's why I think they appear in tandem a lot, grace and mercy. But if there is a distinguishable factor, it would be that, I think.
I think a lot of people growing up, they struggle with the idea of God's grace and mercy and feel like, they're not worthy of it, or that they can't live in it. And what would you say to someone who feels like they can't accept the grace that's been given to them?
I think I would respond with a question, and that would be, tell me why you find it difficult to believe. Because that answer to that question would direct us down the right path for discussion. Could very well be they would say, well, God's grace is too good to be true. It could be they would say, well, God's grace is for others and not me. And by that, they might mean that they have done things that they think are worse than anyone else. Could be that they believe that God's grace is good, but it's not. The other shoe's going to fall. There's some fine print somewhere. And they just don't trust it. It's part of too good to be true, so they don't trust it. The bottom line, I think, Emily, is that we don't have a plan B. I mean, you're talking here you talk to me. I'm an old converted drunk, and I was a mess, and I would never want any young woman to go out with a 20 or 21-year-old version of me. And I struggled to think God could forgive someone like me. But I got to the point where I didn't have a plan B. I mean, if he doesn't forgive me, I don't have a choice. And sometimes that's the best place to be. It's like Peter after he denied Christ. He wept bitterly. He was so despondent. He had no defense, no justification. And yet when Christ came to him, that was grace. And when Christ came to me, that was grace. I didn't have any other choice. I was so desperate that either he's going to forgive me, or I'm going to go tumbling off the edge somehow in some life that's not going to be any good.
Where do you see the elements of grace and mercy and relentless love in Jacob's story specifically?
It's on every page. It's on every page. When he betrayed his brother, God could have cut him off, but he didn't. When he was stranded in the wilderness, running away from his brother, God did not have to appear to him, but he did. When he went into hiding with and lived with Laban, God did not have to give him a beautiful wife, but he gave him Rachel. When he woke up that day and was married to Leah instead of Rachel, God gave him the strength, the grace to carry on. When he had children through 2 wives and 2 handmaidens, that's complete disobedience to God's word. And yet God still kept the lineage, the bloodline of Jesus alive through Judah. When he returned to face Esau for the first time, God had gone ahead and Esau forgave him and received him. When he wrestled with God in the mud of Jabbok, how dare he think he could wrestle with God? But God met him, and then God showed him by touching his hip, knocking his hip out of place, that God was sovereign, but that also God gave him a new name. And so story after story after story after story. Even when he finally makes it back to Bethel, and God reiterates the covenant that he had made first to Abraham, then to Isaac, and now to Jacob. He reiterates it. No matter, yes, you've had this life that's in and out, up and down, but my covenant to you has never changed. This is the beauty of the Jacob story, is that it keeps taking the emphasis off of Jacob, or the person, and places it on God. I remember when I reread it the last time, after having preached all the sermons at the church and written the manuscript, I thought, I keep thinking Jacob's going to get his act together. I keep thinking that he's going to rally. He's going to do like Peter. He's going to come to his senses and preach on Pentecost. Or he's going to be like Paul. Paul, goes into the mission field. He's going to have his moment. He really never does. I mean, he never preaches that we know of. He never writes anything. He has a couple of prayers that are worth learning, but he's not that super saint that we might expect. But God uses him anyway. So I think that the story of grace is on every page of Jacob's story. And down deep, we find such great hope in that, because we know we need God's grace on every page of our own.
That was Max Lucado. Make sure to pre-order his upcoming book, God Never Gives Up on You, which releases September 12th, but you can pre-order it today. All right, stay tuned. Up next. Well, just stay tuned. You'll see. All right, normally this is where I would tell you who you're listening to, this great artist, this great song, but right now, third segment, we have a special guest, song announcer. Please welcome to the show my kid who just started 8th grade, Cohen. Hey, so who are they listening to?
You're listening to The Hard Way by Sid Sriram. Yeah.
Sid Sriram. I gave him the hardest name to pronounce, so there you go. That's just good parenting, everybody. Longtime listeners, I'm sorry for the jolt to your system that just happened by hearing Cohen's voice. You all remember when he was born, one of you one of you named him. Like one of y'all named him or suggested the name Cohen. So Cohen's growing up has been part of this show, and now he has a deeper voice than his dad. So that's great. Okay, so I told you at the beginning of the show, we had a little game at the end. It's not really a game. So little behind the scenes, Jesse had to leave. Little family vacay happened about 5 minutes ago. So Jesse had to bounce. But what we wanted to do was we asked you guys, Marty was going to be on the show today. What would you want to ask Marty? That's what we asked you on social media. You guys hit us up at Relevant Podcast on Twitter X. And here are some of the questions.
Here we go.
No, here are the questions. Here we go. So, Marty, you're in the hot seat. Ready?
Okay, let's do it.
What will you be like 10 years from now?
Man, I will be probably more handsome. I think I'm going to age well. I use this app on TikTok.
Why do you think?
I use an app on TikTok that tells you what you're going to look like in 10 years, and I look awesome. I look like Antonio Banderas. So, need to lose a little bit of weight. But I think I'm going to look like a cool, older, handsome gentleman with leather-bound books, the whole thing. I think I'm going to look great. So, I'm excited. TikTok, shout out to you for giving me that filter.
10 years. When are you buying the books to be ready for the 10 years being that person?
They sell them as a whole. They sell the whole thing as a whole. I'll just buy a bulk prop.
Just a set.
Just, as long as it's there. But yeah, so 10 years, I'll be 30. I'll be 45 in 10 years. And man, here's the thing. Like Cam, I actually will use you as an example, right? Like that's what 40s look. We talked about this in the past, right? If you're what 40s look like, that's awesome, right? Because 40s look like different for our parents and every generation before that. Sure. It's like the Larry David thing. Larry David's like every generation gets better looking. It's a very true fact. Like you look back and if you look at the world in reverse, people age. It's awful. People just look like there's plagues back then. There's still stuff that's happening in Florida right now is still happening, in the 40s and Black Plague and like all these weird, like leprosy came back in Florida. You know how that goes.
Should we tell him?
What?
Should we tell him? Last week, a study came out that scientifically proves that every generation gets uglier and Gen Z is the ugliest generation yet.
No. Yes? Absolutely not true. Have you seen some of the celebrities from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s? Look, here, you know what? Here's the problem with studies like that. It's like we don't have photos. Have you seen the presidents? Have you seen John Adams?
Well, no, that's what people are pulling from is like high school, like their grandparents' high school yearbooks, and they're like,
have you
"Why
seen
did
Frasier when he started? When he started on that one show, Cheers.
It's
like, have you
obviously
seen
not
Frasier?
universal."
It is interesting that like back in the 80s, like 30-year-olds looked 50. That is true.
Yeah.
Not ugly per se, but they looked older.
And so 40s now, I say that to say, Emily, the 40s now is going to look really good. And 50s now look great too.
I got a while before my 40s.
That's what I'm saying. Like when we get older, we're going to look better. We're going to age better. We're going to just age like wine. Some people, though, they age like milk. And so then I highly recommend get some surgery, get some things going on, get the face thing. Like I'm all for it.
I always think about how Steve Martin looks. He's looked the same age for the last 40 years.
He was 60 when he was 28.
Absolutely.
And he looked 60. Yeah.
Keith Richards, another person, the only man that even death couldn't kill. That man looked young his whole life. So my point is this. He looked old his whole life. But my point is this. I think that we are most likely the most altered generation. Like there's more plastic surgery and more apps that make you look cool and six pack. I think that, so we're definitely the most insecure generation. But let me tell you something. I live in California and I've lived in Miami, and I feel like the best looking people, I've seen them all. There's nobody right now that I'm like, wow, that person's good looking. I'm like, I've seen you in 10 forms of you. Right? I've seen, I feel like, guys, let's be honest. We've met so many people in our life. We've seen forms of people. I know it's weird, but like when you travel, you just do. And so I've seen it all. And I'm going to tell you something. People are really good looking nowadays. And in the 80s and 90s, I mean, there were people who looked amazing. Like you look at some of the old celebrities back in the 90s, they are good looking. But you had to be like really good looking to be a celebrity back then. Now everyone could be good looking. Everyone looks like a celebrity. Everyone looks like a freaking star. Everyone's got their lips done and their nose done and their body, and they're all skinny and crap, and they do keto, and you know what I'm saying, they eat like grape and a block of cheese every week. I get it.
I did not anticipate a 9-minute answer to that question. Here we go to the next one. If you could, Marty, if you could shop
I'm filling in for Jesse.
If you could shop for free at one store, which would you choose?
Man, I mean, obviously, I've already been processed this question and thought about it. So it's going to be Publix. I'm going to get food. That's it. Guess what? Now I have food for life.
Such a good answer.
You know, I'm giving food to the poor. It's all free. Everyone's getting free everything. I don't need clothes. Do we really need clothes? Like, I can wear. I don't buy sneakers. All my shirts are $20. I don't have any designer. I get a lot of the hats are given to me, and I wear Birkenstocks pretty much with long white socks all day. I look like a gangster, like an essay type thing. I think people think I could possibly be an essay. I wear high white socks, you know. So
I like it. Is the silent treatment a method you use when angry?
No. I have three wing four. You said that's the thing that
I think so.
Yeah. So for me. No, I'm very confrontation. I love confrontation. That's a fun thing about me. I love to have people run from hard conversations.
Fun? Is that a fun thing? Is that a fun thing about you?
I love it. Because you never know what's going to happen. And also, I think it's because when I was like 18, I worked at Nordstrom and I was in HR. So I was jolted so much by having these really tough conversations at like 19. I couldn't even drink yet. And I'm telling this 45-year-old guy he got fired because he decided to go to the women's bathroom. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just adult conversation. I had to grow up really quick. So I will say that I like confrontation. My wife, she'll be like, all right, we'll talk about it later, and that is hard for me to like put a button and stuff and wait. I'm a very confrontational guy. Can I say?
You go now. Yeah, opposites attract. I get it. All right. Have you ever been bullied?
Yes.
That's the next question.
Yes, bullied a lot in school. I got bullied a lot in elementary school, and then eventually I just had it. And one guy was bullying my sister, and I jumped on him like Christmas Story, said fudge, all the words I had to, and I beat him up. And then from there, I realized like when people get punched in the face, they act different. And so that revolutionized my life. If you get punched in the face, it doesn't matter how tough you are. Like, it hurts. And also, to be completely honest with you, I had some uncles who were a part of some very notorious criminal organizations. And so, like, I always had people fight for me, and I didn't like that. So I remember one time I think I told the story before, but I was getting bullied in my neighborhood, and my uncle's like, I got you. And he gets in his Cadillac, and I was like, wait a second. I'm like 12. I'm like, my uncle's going to kill this kid, because my uncle is like, my uncle had a tattoo right here of it literally said Chino, and it was a picture of like because he would sell heroin to like gangs and stuff. So they had, like, tattoos that would symbolize like his position in his gang. Like, it was like very official, like very weird. So I always had people fight for me, but I remember punching this kid in the face, and he no longer was a problem. So hey, kids, if you're out there and you're struggling with the bully, you punch him right in the face, and he won't be a problem anymore. And if he fights back, listen, you guys will be friends afterwards. Like, it was a good fight, right? It was pretty cool, and then that's how it really works.
All right, 2 left. Here we go. How are your problem-solving skills? I don't know why somebody wants to know that, but they want to know.
I'm amazing. I'm the best problem solver there is. And whenever I do like job applications, like people want to hire me for like consulting and music work and stuff like that. Like, hey, can you help me? They're like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a problem solver. That is all I do. Let me just solve. And that's sometimes what people want to hear. I solve problems.
All right, last one. What do you hoard?
Beanie Babies, for sure. Beanie Babies.
Yeah, you talked about that last time you were on.
I hoard them because I feel like one day they'll be valuable, and I have all the original 7.
And you're right. They will be. I have like a chest full.
Have you seen the new movie with Zach Galifianakis?
There's 2 movies that just came out. Is that the same one? Sorry, Zach Galifianakis is the one with another girl that just came out. Apple. Is that the same one?
Apple TV Plus, The Beanie Bubble. Yeah, I just watched it.
That's the same one? Yeah. Is it good?
I was with somebody watching it, and the person said,
let's change it.
Movie's kind of boring. Yeah.
Let's watch the Beer Run. Let's watch Beer Run with Zac Efron, where he has his shirt off the whole time. We see a 6-pack. Let's watch that instead.
Done. Let's do that.
I'll watch that.
Yeah. So you hoard Beanie Babies. All right. Well, there you go. Those are your answers to your questions that you sent in. Thanks a lot, Marty.
Always.
Well, before we wrap things up, I want to thank Max Lucado for joining us today. Make sure to check out his upcoming book, God Never Gives Up on You, which releases next month, September 12th. But you can pre-order it today. It's worth the pre-order. You should go do that. Also, make sure to check out the summer issue of Relevant. It is out now. You can click the magazine tab at relevantmagazine.com. We have a great cover story with Lauren Daigle. We have amazing artists, think pieces, faith leaders. You don't want to miss it. It's available for free. If you feel like paying for your content, if you feel like a better content experience is worth paying for, and there's no ads and it's premium and there's an enhanced, it's all enhanced. Check out Relevant Plus. You get a premium enhanced version of the digital magazine. You also get ad-free unlimited reading at relevantmagazine.com. You get an ad-free version of this podcast and a weekly subscriber podcast as well. We're going to be adding more to the Relevant Plus membership throughout the fall, so you don't want to miss out on that. Plans start as low as $250 a month. And you can find out all the information at the website by clicking the Relevant Plus tab. Also, if you like the music on this show, like Sid Sriram, which is a very hard name to pronounce, and the song is called The Hard Way, you can find it all by subscribing to the Heard on the Relevant podcast playlist over on Spotify. We also have a hip hop, worship, and indie playlist that we update weekly as well. Go check those out. Also, make sure to follow us on all the socials. We're posting all day, every day on Threads and X, Twitter, and Facebook and Instagram stories, and sometimes other places as well. We're either Relevant Magazine or Relevant on all the platforms. Okay, on that note, I will wrap things up. I'm Cameron Strang.
I'm Emily Brown.
And I'm Marty.
And for Jesse Carey, who's enjoying a family vacation. We'll see you guys on Friday. Have a great week, everyone.
For listening to the Relevant Podcast. Check out our features, interviews, and news updates every day at relevantmagazine.com. And make sure to follow Relevant on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest. For more great podcasts, browse the shows on the Relevant Podcast Network, which you can find at our site. And while you're there, don't miss the all-new era of Relevant Magazine. A new issue releases every other month at relevantmagazine.com.
You're gardening. You're minding your own business.
Relevant Podcast Network.